Hello, Daniel, naturopath here. I just want to talk to you about uh, B3 full flush therapy. So this seems like very innocent. It was actually one of the biggest supplements in the 50s and 60s. I mean, this was a huge supplement. The discovery of B3, probably the 60s more so. But there was, kind of a movement. I know that Bill Wilson, who was the guy who founded like Alcoholics Anonymous or something, he was one of the people behind the movement, and it was this B3 movement where they were giving all these alcoholics and drug addicts and schizophrenics and all these different people like B3, which is nicotinic acid, and they'd found a way to kind of synthesize it and to make it more available. And so they were giving this B3, and they were doing it up to like 3 grams a day. So it was like high dosage to what we're used to today, I guess. And so they said at 3 grams a day, they were doing much higher than 3 grams a day, but 3 grams a day was like what they established as like the good norm for most people, at least for all of these people that they were using it on at the time. And so somehow it helped with their behavior. It helped with like just calming. I don't know if it was the craving or, whatever it was. There was some sort of homeostasis that was obtained, and people had a lot of positive feedback. Doctors, there was a whole kind of movement there. And they even say that that's why we even know what B3 is today, was because of this work that Bill Wilson did. It brought it into public consciousness. So, and whenever he was asked on his deathbed, or not his deathbed, but somebody asked him in later life what was his most proud accomplishment, was it AA? And he said, no, it was the B3 therapy, which I find to be weird, but maybe it's like, AA was so big, but like, maybe the B3 was his own little thing that he was able to, AA seemed to just be bigger than him, and B3 was something he could kind of maybe say, I found this kind of thing, or I don't know. But for some reason, it was really important to him. So I started digging into it, and I looked into like the official papers on it and like the old stuff from the 60s. And sometimes you find more rich information back then because there wasn't so much political shifting around and competitors, shooting down certain companies over years, and so us thinking that certain things are bad for us or whatever. So I started to study the B3, and I realized that the B3 had been badly, it's been a little bit slandered, but they've been all this B3 that's been slandered has been not the original B3. It's been I think it's called inositol, and then niacinamide. There's like flush-free versions. There's extended release versions. And these are the two that are actually creating the problem, that we end up saying that there's problems with B3. It's, it can be unhealthy, and so there's like all these studies that came out accusing B3, but now they accuse B3 itself, but really it was these forms of these molecules that were actually in question. The B3 itself, the nicotinic acid in its pure full flush state, was never a problem. It was only a problem if you couldn't handle it or something. People would take less or whatever, like, the flushing and stuff like that. So some people would, get the right dose, whatever worked for them or whatever, but there wasn't any long-term side effects or harmful effects. So now some of this B3 stuff has been taken up by the, cardiologists in certain fields of alternative medicine where people are using it because it's a great anti-cholesterol or whatever. Like, it helps reduce cholesterol levels, and when you have like kind of not no other choice, but there's a whole group of people who have found this because of that one feature. It's supposed to help break down lipids and fats and proteins and everything in the body. So I don't know exactly. I think that would fit with the cholesterol paradigm. I don't think cholesterol is bad for you, by the way, as a molecule. I think it's, it's more of why is the body producing so much of it? Because we're not eating enough of it, and so your body produces more of it internally. And why is your body trying to defend itself against whatever's attacking it by producing so much cholesterol? I mean, normally you make more cholesterol with age. So that's well known. And so the body, so that should not be medicated, this kind of reality, because that's a well-known fact. But You have to be careful today because they'll lower the numbers, they'll change them from what they used to be in order to get that market, and so you have to be careful. Women should not even be part of this discussion, at least historically. This was more of a male problem. Now, why is the body producing so much cholesterol? And that's another story. Could it be all the sugars? Could it be the lack of proper fats in the bloodstream? Like they were getting the right cholesterol. It's all about the quality of the cholesterol. I mean, I've had people that have had stuck in their cycles. They could not, been told they were sterile, and they started eating foie gras, which is something totally foreign to a lot of people in America, and they started to get their cycles back on track, and something so simple as that. But why? It's only because all of the hormones in the body, especially the sexual hormones, they are coming from cholesterol molecule. That's where it's coming from. So the quality of that molecule or that compound is going to influence the quality of all those hormones. So if we can't find the right stuff, yes, the body's going to try to fabricate more and more internally and do its best to make a weaker version if it can, just like it does with fats. If you give it really bad fats, it'll make its own fats from carbs, and it's a weaker fat. Maybe that's why we have all this cellulite, because it's not the right fat, that's one reason. There's others. But, salt intake and different types of salt we use today, and there's so many other factors, right? So this B3 therapy is kind of like, if you've ever heard of like these cancer therapies that use mistletoe. Well, they use mistletoe and they inject it in the body, and you have to have a doctor, and they inject it until they get to a certain reddening. This reddening is called rubor in Latin. It's like a healing process. Things are pushing out of the body. It's a detoxification. So whenever we get to that reddening, then the doctor notes the dose, and then they stay on that dose for the time of the healing. And so that can go 1 to 2 years, but these people are reddening daily, on a daily basis. They're reddening and pushing this out. Sometimes not daily, but they're pushing this out. So what's happening is the body is using its own system to redden and thus push out these intoxications, which is what cancer is in a lot of ways. It can be anarchic cells and all that, but it's also things we've got into the body that shouldn't be there. Tumors can be built around these toxins, and then given safe haven in the body, because then now they can't affect anything because they're wrapped in a tumor. But at some point the body has to get rid of all this stuff. So the B3 is amazing because it gives you this reddening, this flush. You want the full flush, and this is going to help you to push that. You're going to be like, not the mistletoe treatment, but it's almost like if you were doing the mistletoe treatment every day of your life, then by the time you get 60 and everybody's dying of cancer, like, you're free. And they're having to go through this mistletoe if they're lucky, because that's illegal in so many different places or whatever. But the real reason I think it's illegal is because it just reveals this reddening feature, which can be done with cheap niacin. Now the problem with niacin is you also need to make sure you buy from Solaraay, or a brand which uses rice bran or something as the base. Most of the brands use dicalcium phosphate, I think it's called, and most supplements use this, and they call it food grade and whatever. But like, this stuff is high in fluorine, and it can be even high in like heavy metals. It's possible, mercury and other things, or aluminum probably. But typically it's high in fluorine. And so finding low fluorine, it's just impossible. You're never going to get to that level of detail, especially when you're dealing with pharmaceutical companies who are wearing the vitamin-producing hat, which is where most people get their vitamins from anyway, is from the pharmaceutical companies. And so it's kind of like, it's a no-brainer. Like, it looks all hippie on one side, but they're getting it from the same place. So they're not going to turn up, some of that. So Solaraay has a really good brand of it, which you can get 500 milligrams. You take 6 of these. You take it every day. You always take it around 9 p.m., because the kidneys work, according to Chinese medicine, the kidneys work around 5 p.m. That's when they really need to be left alone to do their work, or assisted, but not like, not thrown these pills at that exact time. So this is just my experience. And so at night, it's actually much better, because you flush during the night, you don't even see it. If you wake up at 3 in the morning, you walk in front of the mirror, you look like you have a suntan. But so this is just happening non-offensively. And over the first, like, you'll get a little bit of a reaction at first because you're not used to it, but over time, it'll just kind of work in. And So I've been doing it for 3 or 4 months now, and I've just noticed that it's helping me detoxify. I will get, sometimes I'll peel, like even if I just get a little bit of sun, I'll peel, but it's not like I'm peeling because I burned myself. It's because there's a reddening produced, and I'm already reddening. So this double reddening is pushing. Believe it's detoxifying aluminum and pushing it out of the body onto the little sebaceous glands and the little, fats on the head, and then it's all coming out in these peeling. So I feel like it's detoxifying me slowly but surely from aluminum, which is the biggest probably factor in the body as far as vaccines and the ubiquitous nature of this stuff in the air, nanoparticles, macroaluminum, and the vaccines, and then all the food and cooking and all the other products and soy-fed animals. Soy is high in aluminum. Like, there's just so many areas that this stuff creeps in. So I think this is helping me push this out, and over time keeps you detoxifying while you're young enough to do it, and to where you don't move into this third age of medical enslavement, and get these things out of your body, detoxify the body. I do think homeopathic remedies do help, like Sankaran method, deep level homeopathy, like high dilution, not these like symptomatic, anti-symptomatic, like homeopathy kind of joke that's going around, but the actual real stuff. From the sensation method, that's the method that you would be looking for if you were trying to find a practitioner. And getting that happening too, that's going to help with the detoxification. Because there's a spiritual level to this detoxification. I don't know how to explain it. Some people call homeopathy spiritual medicine. Maybe it is, but there's other levels than just the physical base that need detoxifying. And so this helps to get everything. We are made of energy, and there is truth to that. We can actually measure it. So we should know that certain things that vibrate at other energies can affect us. So that's what homeopathy is. And so yeah, take the B3. I don't recommend it just for like alcoholics and all that stuff. This is a worldwide phenomenon. What I think it's doing is that the B3 is made from an ammonium ring, and that's how they're creating the nicotinic acid. Like typically, yes, if you had tobacco and you were able to create nicotinic acid from the actual stalks, and you might have a much higher quality of nicotinic acid, which may be much faster and more efficient. I don't know. But as for now, the ring that they're able to create out of this, typically I'd be against this type of synthesis because it would be without its cofactors. So I would think it would render the body deficient. Now, because I take the brewer's yeast from Frontier, the non-organic one, there's such a high concentration of all the other cofactors in that on a daily basis, I feel like it wouldn't drain my cofactors anyway. But the reason why I am for it in this strange exception, which I think a lot of health is like that. It's like, you can be all like this, but then there's an exception. And so life keeps you flexible and subtle. And so I think that the reason there's an exception for the B3 full flush is not only because of Bill and all these guys did it, and I believe in their honesty and what they were discovering, but also because the B3, like, it doesn't, it's able to get into the body and work like almost like how evil can combat another evil. Like they fight each other, and then, it's like in the story, like the giants fight each other while the people get away. It's kind of like that. Evil can fight it out while you're kind of getting away, And so I kind of sense that, for me, like that it's a bad thing, the B3, in a way. It's a type of ammonia or something that's getting into the body, and this ammonia, which is typically bad, is meeting another thing which is bad, which is the aluminum. And so the ammonia is breaking down the aluminum. So the aluminum shouldn't be in there, and the ammonia shouldn't be in there. Just like a bazillion lawyers may be the result of us losing our common sense. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the law profession, but if we have way too many lawyers, well, we've probably lost common sense, you see. So there's some things that they have to eat each other up, so to speak. And so this aluminum and this ammonia are coming together. It's breaking it down and allowing it to come out, And so I think that they were onto something. You were saying, well, where was their aluminum back in those times, when they were doing it? There's been aluminum in everything, even back in the rachitic like era of industrial Chicago. I mean, that was a huge disease there, rachitism or whatever, vitamin D deficiency. They were blaming it on aluminum from the smelting, from the concrete, from the cleaning of the water supply that was used aluminum for that, from the smelting of concrete. I mean, there's plenty of places we could be getting these things into our body. Not even to even start with all the vaccines, but the vaccines have turned it up completely. So we got to get this stuff back out, and I think this is a simple way to do it. It doesn't cost anything. Use the Solaraay, use a brand that doesn't use the fluorine, because the fluorine hurts the teeth. And so you have these studies coming out, B3 hurts the teeth. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It's the dicalcium phosphate that it's put on. So anyway, get it straight, do it right, simple stuff. Don't be afraid. Start taking medicine into your own hands, because freedom and medical, health, freedom and health used to be the same word. A lot of these things are the same. It's the exact same word. Health and freedom, same thing. But, we've divided it all up now, and we've given our power away. So we have to get it all back by taking back our understanding, becoming more, the best system you're going to find on earth is probably well-distributed executive, where there's not executive in one spot. It's well-distributed. But the only way to get well-distributed executive is you need people who can make these decisions, research these things, use their mind, discern, go deep into things, darkness even, and come back out the other side with discernment. So this is the true way to find, to be true to yourself. So, and that rings true with Bill Wilson's final, not words, but one of the words he puts on the little coins, be true to yourself. So here we go. Thanks for listening.